Unless you have a huge social media following, really the only power you have as a consumer is where you spend your money. So the question I've always thought is, if a company behaves badly, how badly do they have to behave before we should stop spending our money there? And how badly do they have to behave before we actually stop spending our money there? And that's what we're talking about today on the GymCrafter podcast. Welcome back to the GymCrafter podcast, everybody. My name is Tim. I am the head gym nerd here at GymCrafter.com, the website that I built to help ordinary folks like you and I build home and garage gyms that we absolutely love. And one of the best things about building home and garage gyms right now in this day and age is we have a ton of places to shop. I remember back in the day when if you wanted a squat rack, there was really only one or two places you could go. If you wanted a decent barbell, there was only one or two places you could go. These days, you have a myriad of places that you can shop and spend your money, and lots of places make lots of great stuff. And man, it is a great time to be in the garage gym space for that reason. And we get to pick from things like not just do you make this or not, but what color do you want? What size do you want? What finish do you want? What country should it be made in? What quality level do you want? All kinds of customization options. And we also get to pick not just from the product differences, but we get to pick based on company. Companies used to be able to get away with giving terrible customer service, really behaving badly in the marketplace. And now we can actually choose to take our dollars to places who treat us better. They have better customer service, better shipping, better packaging, better return policies. And for some people, like myself, one of those aspects of companies that I look at anyway, and I know a lot of you do too, is does that company have integrity? Does it operate with good ethics? Is it honest? And that's what we want to look at today, because over the last probably year or two, there have been some significant events that have happened in this space that really point to some bad ethics, some dishonest companies, and some really kind of shady things going on in the industry. And what I wanted to do is take today's podcast and go through a few of those. And I think that the dialogue around these particular situations ends up focusing on the wrong thing a lot. Like, first of all, we've got the people who just get, we've got the online outrage in the Facebook groups and on Reddit and things like that of how awful these people are, can you believe it? And then you've got other people like, leave them alone, they're fine. And I don't think that the conversation really focuses on the right things to help you and I decide where to spend our money. So I thought it would be interesting to take a look at some of the more well-known issues that have happened. And if you're not really following closely the garage gym space and you have no idea what I'm talking about, I'll definitely fill you in on what happened and why it may or may not matter to you. And that actually right there just actually details one of the things I want to talk about, which is, does this kind of stuff actually end up mattering anyway? Because does anybody other than kind of garage gym dorks like us, does anybody else find out about it? And as we discuss this today, I want to kind of lay two ground rules for this discussion just to kind of put an overarching umbrella over everything. First of all, legal disclaimer. Everything we talk about today is my opinion and my opinion only, based on wild conjecture and me putting on a tinfoil hat and reading too much stuff online. So I am not accusing anybody of anything. I don't have hard evidence of anything. I'm just going to tell you what allegedly has happened to allegedly different companies and what I will allegedly do about it. So hopefully that covers my butt, and I'll probably do that a bunch more throughout the video, because some of this stuff I know people have denied having happened, and I really want to talk about those denials and whether or not they're trustworthy. But like I said, legal disclaimer, this is all my opinion, and this is all stuff that has allegedly happened. The second thing is, there's a rule that I've always operated, maybe not always, I've learned the hard way in my life to operate by this rule. And this rule is, there is no such thing as a minor lapse of integrity. In my experience, whether it's significant others, friends, family, stores you shop at, companies you do business with, employees, employers, if somebody's willing to cheat here, they're willing to cheat there. There's really, you either have integrity or you don't, in my experience. So I think it's important to just realize that that's kind of how I come at a lot of this stuff. Now, does that mean that redemption is impossible? Absolutely not. In the last kind of scenario I go over today, we're going to talk about a company that's done a great job of redeeming themselves and why I think that's a worthwhile redemption and why I think that they've done a good job at that, whereas other companies have kind of tried and really, in my opinion, have failed. But in the end, like I said, I think that there's no such thing as a minor lapse of integrity, and I think that's something to keep in mind as people try and really put forth a lot of cope on behalf of these companies and kind of make excuses for them. And really, they've done things over and over and over again, or if they do things like in an area where you notice behind the scenes they do stuff that I see that maybe consumers don't see, but it's like, yeah, it's a trend. So those are the two kind of overarching rules I want to put on this conversation first. And as far as how we're going to talk about this, this is the third time I'm recording this episode because it's kind of got complex and long and I don't want it to be, is I'm going to go through some specific case-by-case basis of what happened. First, I'm going to tell you what happened, what the company did about it, who did it impact, or who did it hurt, should we be upset or should it matter to us as consumers? Did it matter to us as consumers? And then maybe what we can do about it or not do about it. And then do I think the company is going to do those things again? So that's kind of how we're going to break things down. As usual, I put timestamps down below of everything that we're talking about today, so you can jump straight to the companies that you care about. You can skip past the companies that you may have heard about more than a few times, because all of these situations have been talked about quite a lot in the garage gym space, so you may not want to hear another rehash of it, but I've got all that down below so that you can jump around and just listen to what you want. So with that said, let's just jump right into this first case. And I figured we'd start with the biggest, most well-known, most recent case, which is the Rogue versus Kleva built kerfuffle, right? So for those of you who aren't in the know, what happened is Kleva built, great company, been shopping with them for a long time, privately owned company by a husband and wife, did everything out of their garage, real small space for a while, and make some really cool cable attachments. They make the best landmine in the world, and really some awesome stuff. I've been shopping with them for quite a while, and I really love their stuff. And what happened was they recently partnered with Rep Fitness, and they've got some more products coming out, but their first initial product launch were their cable attachments. They made something called an Atlas cable attachment, which is a multi-grip attachment, a narrow grip one, they made a V-handled one, and they came out with those in conjunction with Rep. Everything was awesome, super happy for Kleva that they got this partnership. Really nice to see Rep Fitness, who's got a much bigger manufacturing and marketing capacity, get these really awesome attachments in front of other people. And they aren't just normal attachments. The neat thing about them is they're made of aluminum, and they're really, really lightweight, which is something you don't see in a lot of attachments. So unique product in the marketplace, something you don't see with a lot of other people. Well, within a week or two, Rogue came out with almost identical products. So as far as were they identical, no, but they were identical enough. So the differences are the Rogue ones were kind of designed to look like Rogue products. They look a little sleeker, they look a little cooler. The Rogue wider attachment has some more adjustment points, although for anybody out there trying to decide between the two of them, I want you to really ask yourself, are you ever going to move those handles? And I think the answer for most people is no, but on paper it's more adjustable. And then they were slightly lighter and they were slightly less expensive, or the same price, I don't remember. And when this happened, the internet went wild, right? Everybody's like, oh my God, can you believe that Rogue did this again? So keep in mind, this isn't the first time that Rogue had done something like this to another smaller manufacturer, and just mysteriously came out right after something came out. They came out with their own version that is Roguified, or whatever you want to call it. And so you've got the Rogue fanboys out there going, oh, it's just a coincidence. Oh, look, they iterated, they made it better, all that kind of stuff. So the first thing I want to talk about, and this is a great example, is I've got a 5-year-old nephew. And his name's Calvin. You guys have heard about him before. I've talked about him here on the podcast. And this Easter, I was babysitting him and my nieces, and I walk in the kitchen, and there's Calvin with chocolate all over his face, right? All over his face, all over his fingers. And I'm like, hey, Calvin, you been in the Easter candy like you know you're not supposed to be? No. You sure you got chocolate over your face? No, I don't. Yeah, buddy, come here, look. See, there's chocolate. I don't know how that got there. I'm like, really? You weren't eating chocolate? No. So I get that from a 5-year-old. It's cute, it's funny. We cleaned him up, we had some more candy, no big deal. But that's kind of how I see a lot of people responding to this Rogue and Kleva built thing. Look, Rogue's got chocolate all over its face. Now, is it possible that Calvin walked into the kitchen, tripped and fell, face first into a big pile of melted chocolate and didn't realize it had happened? I suppose in the grand scheme of the universe, that's possible. Just like I suppose it's possible, there's about the same amount of chance that Rogue came up with these on their own, right? So the first thing I want to say is it would be really great if people could just admit what happened. Is you can still like Rogue and go, hey, they did something bad. Like my nephew, I love my nephew. He's awesome, but sometimes his behavior is bad. I don't like the behavior, but I still love him. And it's okay, I guess, if you're a Rogue fan. It would be cool if you go, yeah, I really like Rogue, but man, they were kind of shady on that one, right? So I would really like people to just admit that. Well, it didn't end there. The owner of Kleva came out and then told a story about how they had actually been in an agreement with Rogue to build these specific attachments, that he had sent Rogue the CAD files, and you can go see the video online if you want, but in the end, it just confirmed what everybody already knew, even to the people who were like, no, they didn't copy them. So it was pretty sure, allegedly, that Rogue just stole the stuff and ripped it off. And Rogue hasn't said anything at all. And this isn't the first time that Rogue has done this. And as I mentioned in the beginning, I think sometimes the discussion around these issues goes the wrong way. And what the discussion turned into wasn't whether Rogue did something right or wrong. I think we can all, if we're being intellectually honest with ourselves, Rogue clearly did the wrong thing. It's a horrible look. You stole from somebody else, allegedly. And that's just not a good look for Rogue, right? But instead of talking about whether it was right or wrong, which I think is a really valuable and important discussion to have in our industry, what happened was it turned into, was it legal or not legal? And it's like, because even the owner of Kleva said, hey, we had an NDA and the timing of that was up. So technically speaking, Rogue didn't do anything illegal. So the analogy that I'll use, and I'll go back to little kids, because I think sometimes these companies and people act a lot like little kids, is I remember riding in the back seat of our car. We used to drive to Colorado every summer to go visit my grandparents from here in Illinois. It's about an 18-hour car ride. And as you can imagine, two young boys in the back seat, I would torment my little brother would torment me. At some point, my parents would yell at us and go, stop touching each other. And at some point, one of us would go, I'm not touching him. Look, I'm not touching him. I'm not touching you. If you have a brother or a sister, you have done this. And that's kind of how I look at the whole discussion of whether it was legal or not. No, you weren't technically touching them. But you were, right? Like you were in the wrong. You were in the wrong, you know it. You know you were tormenting your sibling, right? Even though you weren't technically doing anything illegal, you weren't technically touching them. And that's kind of how I look at that discussion of, well, they weren't doing anything illegal. Like, who cares, right? Like, who cares? Unfortunately, we live in a world that's governed by a ton of regulations and laws. And what that means is that large corporations with big legal departments can actually outmaneuver small independent owners of companies. And when we talk about why this particular thing matters and who did it hurts a lot of people, because what it does is it shows that these large companies with big legal departments can just kind of do whatever they want, knowing that these small companies can't afford to do anything about it. And as far as real world damage, so the first thing is as Kleva was working with Rogue over a very long period of time, actually, they stopped selling things on their website because they knew, or they thought, that they were going to release these products with Rogue. So the Klevas, the family that owns the business, they lost months and months and months of income. If you're a Kleva fan, you notice that for a while it's like, hey, how come nothing's in stock on your website anymore? And that's why, because they were holding off to sell through another company. So not only that did they lose months and months of sales, but then when the deal fell through with Rogue, before they got with Rep, now they've got to restart all their engineering and manufacturing, and they've got to get stuff built again, and they've got to go through all this extra expense to try and find a warehouse and put stuff in it, and then place orders again, and that whole thing cost them a ton of money. And for a two-person business, it's just an unsustainable loss in a lot of cases. Not only that, fortunately, they were able to partner with Rep, because I don't know if Kleva, to be honest, as a small business owner, I don't see how you get out of that alive as a company if you don't find another partner like Rep to work with. So thankfully Rep works with them, but it also costs Rep sales, because I've talked to a lot of people that are like, oh, well, the Rogue is more adjustable. Oh, the Rogue is 1 ounce lighter. Oh, the Rogue looks cooler, so I'm just going to buy them. So, they lost sales as Kleva. They lost sales as Rep and Kleva. And in the end, it definitely hurt their sales. Now, I have a lot of people too, and this I think is cope, where they're like, oh, okay, both companies more exposure, everybody wins. I don't buy that, right? Like even if sales went up for one or the other, or the exposure of the rep products went up because of the kerfuffle, I think that sometimes people in this space give ourselves too much credit, because in the end, 98% of Rogue's customers had no clue that this was going on, right? This is something that's kind of inside baseball to a lot of people, and we'll talk about that more as we talk about more of these issues. But in the end, it did hurt people. So the questions I have is, should it matter, right? Like, it's one thing to get all upset and make a podcast. It's one thing to get all upset and jump on a Facebook group and type away. And it's another thing to make, YouTube videos. Lots of people made YouTube videos about how awful this was or how not awful it was or whatever it happens to be. But the question is, should it matter? That's, to me, is a much more interesting conversation than, are you touching me, right? So knowing that Rogue didn't technically break the law, does this actually matter or not? And to me, there's a couple of areas where I think it really actually matters a lot to you and I. Number one, last year at Home Gym Con, I talked to several people who were there as just attendees who would have had booths there, but didn't for and I had at least 3 people that I can remember tell me the exact same thing. I am not going to show my new product at a place where Rogue is because I think they're going to steal my idea and manufacture it, and then I'm going to be out a product, right? I heard that from at least 3 different people. Now, again, allegedly, that's hearsay. Would they have actually done that or not? I don't know, but I can tell you that these people took specific action and kept products out of the marketplace, out of the show for a while because they were afraid of IP theft from this one specific company. So there, I think it really does matter. And then that also leads to, how many people are out there who are afraid to bring out a product at all because they don't want this to happen, right? Like, how many people are afraid to come out with good ideas and then actually afraid to partner with companies because they're like, well, they're just going to steal it from me and I'm going to put in all this work and all this sweat equity and all this design time and all this prototyping time, and then I'm not going to actually get anything out of it, as other big companies are going to come in and swoop it and pick it up and take it away and just sell it as their own. So to me, I think it should matter. My question to you is, do you think it should matter? Does it matter that larger companies like this just kind of go, well, we iterated, we made it a little bit better? I'm really interested to know, because I don't think it's right to judge people for how they view these. I think everybody's coming at things with their own life experience. And me as a small business owner, obviously I tend to err on the side of the small business owners. Other people who maybe haven't owned a business, or maybe you own large businesses and you're like, yeah, we do this all the time, no big deal. That's why we have a legal department. We get sued every day, whatever it happens to be. Let me know if you think it should matter. An even more interesting question, this is one of the things I think is cool, and we're going to point out about all of these, is maybe not cool, but just interesting, is, did it matter? Like, did this change anything? Did the whole blow up, did the whole thing, did it actually matter in the end? Did it change anyone's behavior? Is there anybody out there with a Rogue t-shirt in their closet that is not going to buy the Rogue version of this because they don't like what they did to Kleva? That's not, like, do you guys think that there are? I don't think there are. I don't think that of the people who knew about this, I don't think many people are going to change what they were going to do. I think you've got a lot of Rep Fitness fans out there who will shop with Rep Fitness. I think you've got a lot of Rogue fans out there who will continue to shop with Rogue. I think you have a pretty good, loyal, small base of customers like myself who have shopped with Kleva for years, who would have bought the Kleva ones anyway. And I'll be honest, I like the look of the Rogues better. I think they look kind of cooler to me, to be super honest. But I'm still going to buy the ones from Kleva because I like the company. I like the fact that they actually came up with the idea. So, but in the end, did it matter? Did it change sales? Some people say that sales of both went up because of the hubbub, but I think the other part of why I don't think it really ends up mattering in the end for this one is, like I said already, I don't think that most people who shop with Rogue are all that in tune with going on in the garage gym industry. I don't think most of them even know who Kleva is. They might be aware that, hey, Rep makes something that looks similar. I'll buy these because I'm a Rogue guy, right? Like, I don't know that anybody really in the end even found out about it, let alone were able to change their behavior. So, should you keep shopping there? Now you know about it. Like, you're not one of the people who don't know about it. Maybe you're not a Rep fan or a Kleva fan or a Rogue fan. Like, should you shop at Rogue? Should you give Rogue money? Should you just avoid this particular product? And for me, one thing that a lot of people have pointed out, and I've pointed out before, is you'll know that I don't do Rogue on this channel. I don't review their products, I don't buy their products, and it's not because I don't think they make good products. I think they make excellent products. Just me personally, my own experience, I've had quite a few bad experiences with the company. I'm going to give you one of them, okay? So I bought an Ohio Power Bar. out of their boneyard because I wanted to try the Ohio Power Bar. Everybody's saying this is the best power bar you can buy. So I'm like, you know what? I don't want to spend $400 on it. I'd already had some bad experiences, but they had a good deal on one in the boneyard. And if you're not familiar with what the boneyard is, it's factory seconds, right? It's aesthetic blemishes, little nicks, scratches, finish issues. But they make a point, and I don't know if they still do, but they made a point at the time of, but it doesn't affect the functionality of the product, right? So you can buy it, it might look like garbage, which it did, but again, I expected that and I got a great price. The problem is that one sleeve was a wider diameter than the other one. So literally half of my weight plates wouldn't go on the sleeve of this bar. To me, that's not functioning like it should function, right? They couldn't have cared less. I won't bore you with the details of how awful they were about it and how rude they were and just literally like could not have cared less, just told me to go pound sand basically. And so for me, the reason I'm bringing that up is the reason I started this podcast with there's no such thing as a minor lapse of integrity. I think that if you're going to blatantly out in public steal from another company, right? And like didn't even wait 3 or 4 months to release them, like literally released them like right after. They couldn't have planned it to be more blatant if they tried, right? If they're gonna do that in front of God and everybody, what are they gonna do behind the scenes? And that's where I see things like other issues that I've had with them, other issues that I've heard of other people having with them, where it's like, clearly ethics aren't your top priority, right? So allegedly, based on my opinion. But it's interesting is, that's why I won't shop there. That's why I started with there's no such thing as a minor lapse of integrity, because if you're gonna do it over here, I guarantee you're gonna do it over here, and one of these days I'm gonna get burned. So I would rather just not give you any of my money. And like I said at the beginning, the cool thing is, there is nothing that they sell that I can't get someplace else. There's nothing unique. There's nothing that I can only like, there's no exercise. Like I'm never gonna come in my garage and go, you know, I can't do exercise X because I don't have a Rogue X, right? So for me, we're in a great place. So me personally, I choose not to shop there because of this. I choose not to review their products because of this. And again, not because they're bad products. They're great products. They make some awesome stuff. I'm just not a fan of the company and how they conduct themselves. And this is a good example. The last point is, will they do this again? If I was a betting man, how much money would you take? Absolutely, they'll do it again. They've done it multiple times before. They didn't even bother to say anything this time. These products are still for sale. They will absolutely do it again. That's just the way it is. And until they come out and do what we talk about in the last part of this podcast, I'm just not going to send them any of my money. What do you guys think? I know there's a lot of you out there who really love the Rogue stuff. And as I said at the beginning, you know, what does a company have to do for people to go, yeah, that was the wrong thing? And then how bad does that thing need to be before people go, I'm just not going to shop there anymore? Like, that's got to be really bad for a lot of you, right? But let me know in the comments what you think. I know, like I said, I know I just made a lot of you Rogue folks mad. I'm not trying to do that, but you know, what happened is what happened. The facts is the facts. So if I got the facts wrong, please let me know, but I don't think I did. Let's move on to the second case. The second one was a little further back than this, a year or two ago, and it's a company called Force 6, and ripping off or stealing IP from a company called Darko Lifting. Now, if you're not familiar with Darko Lifting, it's another one of those single owner companies, real small company based out of California. If you're a fan of Darko, then you're a fan of Darko. Like there's no doubt of whose side you come down on this issue. Outside of that, I don't know that Force 6 has fans. I think they have people who buy stuff because they won't get out of my Instagram feed. But in the end, Darko's got a really good cult following, makes some really awesome stuff, really cool guy. I've actually got some stuff coming for my rack. I've got some little short weight horns for my fractional plates coming, which I can't wait for those to get here. He's been awesome. I really want to work with him on a couple of custom projects for the rack. And just, I love the company. Again, same thing as Kleva. I love the company. I love giving him my money. I love doing business with him. I love recommending his products. So what happened was he's come out with a couple of kind of iconic products. He's come out with a lot of products, but a few of them have really hit. And probably the one that's hit the biggest is what's called a barbell anchor. If you're not familiar with what a barbell anchor is, it's these little hangers that you can put on your rack that look like an anchor, and you can store barbells on them. So if you don't have a rack like I do on the wall, or you don't have room, maybe you just have a couple of barbells, you can actually just keep them right in your rack, right where you use them. And it's cool because he builds them out of these different custom colors and things like that. Well, quite soon after he introduced the barbell anchor, 4.6 introduced their barbell hanger that looks an awful lot like an anchor. It's really, the difference from Darko's product to the 4.6 product is very similar to the difference from the Kleva built product to the Rogue product, right? Looks a little sleeker, looks cool. I like the way that they look. Like, I don't want to knock it at all. It looks really cool, but it was clearly a ripoff, right? Again, chocolate all over their face. And again, they might have accidentally slipped and fallen and accidentally designed something that looks exactly the same, or they ripped it off, right? So the difference here is that the owner has come out, and you know, like Rogue didn't say anything. Well, the owner of 4.6 has come out and done at least one interview that I know of, and really just reminded me of my 5-year-old nephew. Just be real honest. It was, I didn't do it. I didn't know what you're talking about. I didn't do anything wrong. Like all these weird, like maybe it was if like my 5-year-old nephew had grown up to be a 13-year-old juvenile delinquent talking to the cops about, I wasn't speeding, that was another car, that wasn't my license plate, I don't know, maybe you got the wrong guy, maybe your radar gun's broken, maybe, like, it's just like, it was just like weaselly, greasy, like, just, I needed a shower after this interview, to be real honest, just to put it super bluntly, and just know like, hey, I understand why people could think that, here's why, like, it was just denials and just kind of shady. So honestly, that makes things worse. Guys, if you're out there and you're gonna steal somebody's idea, just keep your mouth shut. Because unless you're gonna come out and say, I'm sorry, everybody knows what you did, right? We all saw it. So who does this hurt? So Darko's got a little bit bigger of a following, a little bit more rabid of a following, he's doing pretty well, selling stuff at Home Gym Con. Kleva Built was at Home Gym Con as well. But does this hurt Darko? Yes, it hurts Darko, right? He's gonna sell less barbell anchors. However, he's a small enough guy to where, again, like I kind of said with the Rogue and the Kleva Built stuff, I don't know that Darko's customer base and 4.6's customer base overlap all that much. Now, folks who follow the home gym industry and we watch home gym YouTube videos and things like that, we've probably heard of both. But I would say that your average home gym owner probably hasn't heard of Darko and probably has heard of 4.6 just because 4.6 spends just a lot more money in marketing, right? Like they're all over my Instagram feed, they're all over my Facebook stuff, they're all over like the YouTube mid-roll ads, like they're everywhere. And they make some cool stuff, right? Like it's just cool accessory type stuff, it looks good. Honest, again, being blatantly honest, if it wasn't for this issue, I would probably have already reviewed a bunch of 4.6 stuff. I think they make some cool looking stuff. I think they make some products that I would like to try in the gym. Again, I don't know that they make anything you can't get anywhere else, so I'm not really missing by not having it, but they make some cool stuff. So I'm not bringing this story up because I think it necessarily hurt Darko all that much or that it's gonna hurt 4.6 all that much. I don't think either one of them is gonna be plus or minus in the business column really overall in the end because of this. I'm sure Darko probably might have seen a little bit of a dip when this first came out, but in the end, like I said, I think Darko's customers are Darko's customers. And I could be wrong. Let me know in the comments if you think I'm wrong on that one. But for me, another interesting thing that I heard at Home Gym Con last year and that I've actually seen from home gym folks that I'm friends with is, guys, I gotta tell you, there are a ton of products that exist in the world for your home gym that you would love, that you would spend tons of money on, that would make your life better, that would make your workouts better, that would make your gym better, and that you will never ever see, and there's only one of them, and they're in the inventor's garage. Because there's a lot of us, because we're sitting here in our garage during rest periods and things like that and going, you know, my squat rack could use that. I've got a welder over there. Let me go ahead and make, man, that's really cool. Now, going from, meh, that's really cool, I'm glad I made one for myself, to prototyping, marketing, iterating, packaging, shipping, selling, all that kind of stuff takes a lot of effort. So if you're looking at this landscape and you're going, well, look at what Rogue did, look at what 4.6 did, and, you know, gosh, as soon as I put this out, 4.6 is going to come out with a clone of it, or somebody like 4.6 is, or allegedly going to come out with a clone of it. So I'm going to keep throwing that in there. Don't sue me. Like there's so many people who are just like, no, I'm not even gonna bother. I made it for me. I don't care enough to help other people out. Like I'll make my friends some, like I've got a couple of cool things that are made that just custom made 3D printed stuff like that, which I think are awesome. The person's just like, nah, it's not worth the trouble. By the time I get it to market, some other company's gonna steal it and it's just not gonna sell, and why bother, right? So I think as far as who it hurts, when stuff like this happens, it not only hurts the smaller creators, it hurts us, right? It hurts us because we miss out on a ton of cool stuff. So I would love at some point going forward to see some way to make it easier for these smaller companies to bring stuff out. And I think we're seeing that with Two companies in specific, Rep Fitness and Fringe Sport, are doing a really nice job of collaborating with people and bringing stuff out. Bells of Steel as well has been doing some collaborations. And I think that the more large companies realize the gold mine that is out there of these smaller inventors who just either don't have the desire or don't have the will or just don't want their stuff stolen, that if they can get a hold of these folks and really work with them to bring stuff out and take their marketing and their manufacturing powers and match it with these really cool products, I think that'll be cool. So the more companies that do that, the more of this stuff we'll see. But in the end, the more companies that steal and just kind of deny and say there's not chocolate on my face, the more people are just going to hide their design. So as far as who it hurts us. Now, should it matter? I think for all the reasons I just said, I think that this type of thing should matter. Does it matter? Like, does it change anybody's behavior? Again, I don't think so. There's a lot of people, especially Darko fans, who are online being angry, and I don't think those people would have bought a 4.6 thing anyway. So did it end up mattering in the end? I don't think so. Another question is, will 4.6 do it again? Again, if I'm betting, and I didn't bet all my money on the first one, I'm going to bet the rest of my money on this one. I'm going to bet that yes, this will happen again, because again, I just don't think that people who get away with this and there's really no repercussions, there's no reason for them not to do it again, especially if when they do an interview, they don't actually say they're sorry for what they did, say that they made a mistake, make an effort to make it right, and do the other things that are needed to follow that path to redemption that's out there. Let's look at the next one. The next one has nothing to do with stolen IP, and it has everything to do with lying on your specs. So Mikolo was caught importing racks that, I'm going to try and stick to just the facts. Everybody guesses they were made of aluminum or an aluminum alloy. It might not have been aluminum. What we do know is that they weren't steel and they weren't the gauge that they said they were. So what was supposed to be 14 gauge steel was, I think, 16 gauge not steel, right? And the way we knew it wasn't steel was magnets didn't stick to it. I don't know that anybody took the metal to a metallurgist and figured out what, all we know is that it wasn't what it was supposed to be. Now, who does that hurt? It could hurt somebody really badly. So here we're not just talking about lost profits, lost wages, lost companies. We're talking about injuries. We're talking about sometimes life-threatening injuries and really serious things that could happen. So it matters a lot when people lie about their specs, and you see this a lot. This is the only one. I bought a metal gauge tester and a weight capacity, they call a crane scale, just to test some of these specs, because people are just slapping things on these Amazon listings and their website listings that have no basis in real fact, right? They're just, oh, this sounds good. Let's just sell a bunch of them, and if we get caught, we get caught. We'll just move on. So should that matter? Hopefully we can all agree that it should matter. But the reason I'm including this example isn't to throw Mikolo under the bus. I've actually talked about them before, and they may have changed. They may have been a one-off thing. That's what they said. At least that's what I've read that they've said, and that, you know, maybe all their current racks aren't this way. But I think it still should matter. Again, there's no such thing as a minor lapse of integrity. If they did this once, then are they just going to do it in another way that maybe is harder to get caught at, but still puts our safety at risk? For me, it's not worth it. Am I going to buy something from Mikolo? No, specifically for this reason. And I just don't trust, if you're going to do that and you're going to put people's lives at risk. Like, this isn't even, like I said, it's not even like, I didn't steal anything, la, la, la. It's literally like, this could hurt somebody and you let that leave your factory. So again, allegedly, who knows if it was the factory or if it was the company. In the end, racks that had that brand name on them were not what they said they were. That's where I'm going to draw the line as far as what actually happened that I know for a fact. But that's kind of dangerous, right? So no, I'm not going to spend that money again. And yes, I do think that they would do that again. The weird thing for me about this situation is when I ask, did it matter in the end? The odd answer, and I don't get this, is no. I have had so many conversations with people either on YouTube comments or via email where I've mentioned this before, and I've had this exact email a bunch of times. Hey Tim, can you tell me which model number that rack was so I make sure I don't buy that one? My response, I wouldn't recommend buying anything from them because if they did it with this one thing, they'll do it with other stuff. Yeah, but I really see this one thing that I like, and if it's not that, I think I'm going to buy it. Like, again, back to the question I asked at the beginning, how bad does somebody have to mess up for us to get mad And then how bad does somebody have to, like, did somebody actually need to die? Like and even then, would it have mattered? Like, why? I don't understand. So did it end up mattering? I don't know. I think some people probably didn't buy it, but I don't think those people would have bought it anyway. I think that some people are so focused on the internet marketing, they can't get their heads out of the Instagram pages. They're swayed by a lot of people who do what I do, who are just like, look at this cool new Mikolo rack, look at this cool new Major Fitness rack, and like they're just looking at like, oh well, they changed. It's called a Pro now. It should be much better, right? It says it's 12 gauge, like. So anyway, hopefully you get what I'm saying there. Should it matter? Yes. Does it matter? Strangely, to a lot of people, no. So help me understand that down in the comments, guys, because I don't get that. So, but let's move on to the next one. This next one is another one, and it's kind of a mix of a bunch of things. And this is another small manufacturer called Mag Attachments, or Maximum Advantage Grips. They make the best cable attachments in the world. They are so good that I've put these attachments in just people who I'm training in their hands. And they'll literally go, I'm training this guy named James, and I had been having him use the Kleva belt Atlas for pull downs. And I said, let me have him use the mag grip attachment that I've got. And literally after one pull down, he stops, he goes, man, I really feel that right here now. That's so different. Like, that's the point of these attachments, is like just the shape and the design of the attachment really gets you to just almost automatically use the right muscles, which is just so awesome when you're training, because that's one of the hardest things to do when you're training, is to, on pull downs, to not use your biceps and to use your lats, right? Like, I can't tell you how hard that is to get people to do when you're training them, to use the right muscle, the one we're trying to work out. And here's an attachment that just does it automatically. The drawback of these attachments is they're stupid expensive. Like, they're super expensive. And on Amazon, there is a line of attachments called BLUSLM, I think is the name, where these are exact knockoffs. And for the price of, I think, 2.5 of the mag grips, you can buy a full set of 5 or 7 of the Amazon knockoffs. And it is such a price difference. And guys, they're exactly the same. They are an absolute perfect Chinese clone of the mag grips. And I've had more than one person go, yeah, I know they're knockoffs, I don't care. So again, back to, should it matter? Yeah, for all the reasons we've talked about. And not only the things we've talked about already about bringing new products out, here's somebody who did bring the product out, right? They went to the trouble to design, to iterate, to prototype, to market, to sell, to bring them out. They don't have an affiliate program. Everything they sell is word of mouth. And they do a great job and they sell a ton of stuff. And then here's this company that's just like, I'm just gonna make it in my factory overseas and import it, and nobody's gonna care. And here's a company that's still bringing out new products. But the reason why we should care, and the reason why we should buy the mag grips and not the Amazon ones, at least in my opinion, is that one of the other things that is a drawback of people stealing IP like this is it doesn't just stifle those new products coming out, it stifles innovation from companies that are already here. Like, if this wasn't allowed on Amazon and they weren't allowed to be sold because they're clear knockoffs, and all of the sales that went to them, or some of the sales anyway, because they are more expensive, went to mag grips, how much more money did they have for R&D? How many more new products did they come out with? How much more research did they do? How many new versions did they come out with? How much better did their products get? Like, are we looking at products that could be, 2 times better, 3 times better, but because they don't have the R&D money coming in because of all the lost sales to Amazon, that we just don't get those products? They just released a tricep pushdown piece, which is really, really good. But does that come out from other companies? Like, do other companies, like, why am I iterating new products? Why am I innovating anymore? Why am I coming out with new stuff that nobody else has, when some Yahoo in China is just gonna copy it? So that's another one that I thought I would bring up. But again, should it matter? Yes, it should matter. Does it matter? Oddly, no. Right? Like, oddly, it doesn't end up mattering to a lot of people. It matters to some. Like, my guy Joe Gray over at the Gray Matter Lifting channel talks about this all the time. And I know that there are a good number of you, and I'm one of them. I have one mag attachment up there because that's what I can afford right now. Would I like to have the full set? Yeah. Did I have the full set of knockoffs in my cart or in my wish list on Amazon? Yeah, I did. I thought about buying them a bunch, and I'm just like, I can't in good conscience do that. So I know that there's a lot of people out there who do the right thing, who just buy the originals, and that's awesome. But I also know, based on the sales numbers and the number of reviews you see on Amazon, that there is a whole bunch of people who are buying the knockoffs and really kind of cheating this other company out of the money and the income that they deserve. So that's another example. Now I want to talk about, I've talked about it a little bit, is a path to redemption. So what do you do if you're a company and, like the Mikolo thing, like how do they go from, hey, I would never buy one of their things to I would buy something again? How does Rogue go from, hey, it's a company that Tim will never review on his channel, to you seeing a Rogue review on my channel, right? Like how do you go from point A to point B? And I think the best way to give you an example of that is the PRX and Vendetta Strength Jammergate, I think they call it. So basically, this started last year at Home Gym, kind of a little bit before, but Kyle from Kaizen DIY, a great YouTube channel you should check out, and then his buddies over at Vendetta Strength had partnered to make some really cool advancements in jammer arms. Jammer arms, if you're not sure what they are, they're kind of things that sit in the corner and collect dust for most people because the original versions just weren't all that versatile. It's one of those things that looks like a great idea, but they're big, they're clunky, they're not super versatile, and what most people end up doing is it's not worth bringing them out and hooking them up because you can't do a lot. Well, Kyle and Vendetta Strength made some really cool alterations to these so that they just opened up an entire world of possibility for what could be done. And what do you know? And they actually, I believe, if I'm getting the story right, they actually did work with PRX a little bit to see if they wanted to kind of partner or collaborate. And then what do you know? All of a sudden, PRX comes out with what they call their Halo arms. And they are again, chocolate all over your face, PRX. So this one was interesting because instead of having an owner come out and make BS excuses, or instead of having the ownership just be quiet, we had this weird middle thing happen where the marketing guys got involved. And it's never good when the marketing guys get involved, right? And they made this video. I don't know if it's still out there, but I think they might be robots. I'm not sure, but it was awful. Like it was the single worst apology video explanation. I don't even know what you want to call it. It was awful. It was like, oh, there's a fire. Hey, Henry, get some gas. We need to make that fire bigger. It was just, it took the situation, just made it way worse. And I'm watching this whole thing and I love PRX guys. Like I think if you're gonna buy a foldable squat rack that attaches to the wall, these guys are it. If you have a tight space in your gym and you need to get everything up stored on the wall so you can still park your car in the garage, these guys are it. Great company. They got their start on Shark Tank, which is another weird one for me because I'm like, wait a minute, you guys were the small inventor, right? Like, how are you gonna go rip off a small... Turns out that the ownership, who had kind of stepped away from having day-to-day responsibilities, which happens when a company gets big, right? Like the founders, they're responsible for the vision, right? They're not necessarily responsible for the day-to-day operation. Well, when the founders found out, they did the right thing. And I think that I want to use what PRX did as an example of how do you go from a company that's really known or gets caught stealing IP or doing things and faking the specs or making things out of stuff that they're not supposed to be made of. How do you do like all the stuff we talked about today? How do you go from that to, hey, they're a company in good standing? I think there's 4 steps to this path of redemption, and I think PRX is a great example of somebody who did all 4 of these right. The first thing is you have to truly repent of what you did. You truly have to be sorry. You have to genuinely understand that you did something wrong, and it can't be a, yep, I did something wrong and it sucks to be you because it's legal, I'm not touching you, but you have to actually be sorry. Whether it's legal, not legal, whatever it happens to be, you have to actually be sorry for what you did. You have to have some empathy for the person you hurt. You have to understand that, like we talked about in this episode, you actually did bad things to people that hurt them in all these different ways. So I think that's number 1. And I think PRX, when their owners and their founders got involved, actually did that. I think the founders, because like I said, they were on Shark Tank and they could relate, they could empathize, they could feel for these guys of, hey, I was you and I understand what this must have felt like. Like I really got that feeling from them. Secondly, you have to apologize and take responsibility for what you did. It can't be a, I'm sorry you feel this. Like I love Hollywood apologies. Like they'll come out and they go, I'm sorry that you guys all feel bad for what I did. No, it's not, I'm not sorry for how I feel. Be sorry for what you did, right? So that comes with that repentance, right? Like if you truly understand that you did something wrong, then you need to apologize to the person for what you did and be genuine about it. Like it needs to be a genuine apology and admission of what you did wrong. The third thing you need to do is you need to make amends, right? You need to make it up to the person. You need to fix that financially. You need to fix it reputationally. You need to give them exposure. You need to do whatever it takes to make them whole again. You damage them in a certain way, you need to fix that. You need to actually be proactive. And is it going to cost you money? Yes. Is it going to cost you time? Yes. But you are the one who screwed up. You need to make it right. And then you need to make an honest effort never to do it again, right? Like, you can't keep doing like, I'm sorry, I won't ever do it again. I'm sorry, I won't ever, like, I know Calvin's going to sneak candy again. No problem. He's 5. But if you're a grown-up company run by grown-up adults, if you say you're not going to do it again, you should never do it again. And that's why I've kind of included in some of these, do I think they're going to do it again? Yes, because they already have, right? So when you do things more than once like that, I stop believing that you're not going to do it again. Well, the cool thing is I think PRX did all of those things, right? I think they truly felt bad. I think they did a great job of apologizing. They flew all these guys out to PRX for, I think, 2 days. They worked on getting a partnership done and getting some type of, now it's a sealed agreement, so nobody really knows what happened, but it seems like everybody's happy, so it seems like they made things right. And they've expressed a lot of interest into the value of collaborating with other creators down the road. So it tells me that they see the value of the goodwill in the home gym community of actually collaborating instead of stealing. So I wanted to include that because while I bagged on those first 3 or 4 companies pretty hard, and honestly, to me, I think they deserve it, allegedly, but I think that there are companies who can find their way out of this kind of situation and not only come out like redeemed, but come out better than they were in the first place. Like, I actually have a better opinion of PRX now after they made things right than I did at the beginning. Now, here's where somebody comments like, did you know what PRX did yesterday? Hopefully that's not the case. But yeah, so I wanted to end with the story of how do you get out of that. And by the way, that applies to us as people, right? Like when we screw up and when we make something bad for another person and we do something wrong, that's exactly how we need to treat it, right? Like we need to be genuinely sorry. We need to apologize and take responsibility. We need to make amends. And then we need to make sure we don't ever do it again. So why did I make this podcast? I want the garage gym space to be better. I want those little products that are hidden in lots of people's garage gyms to come out as products that I can buy, that I can show you, that you can buy, that will make our home gyms better. I spend a ton of time out here. I love finding things that I like a lot. I've got a couple of products that I've got recently that are huge surprises to me that you'll see videos on soon that are like, man, I can't wait to tell people about this. And I want that for a lot of the smaller creators. You know, when I was at Home Gym Con, these smaller creators are good people, right? Like they're good people with families who are just trying to do right by their families, who are trying to just make their way in the world, not work for somebody else. You know, they've got that entrepreneurial spirit, which is what our country was built on. And I think it's really interesting when those people succeed. And I think it's really good when those people succeed. And it's up to us, right? In large part. Now, again, is it really going to matter? Because a lot of people are going to go, I don't care, whatever's cheapest, that's what I'm going to buy. I don't care, I'm a so-and-so fan, so that's what I'm going to buy. Like, I get that. But man, I would like to see it make a bigger difference than it has. A little more than just sitting down at a keyboard and typing, oh, you shouldn't have done this, and then adding to cart anyway, right? So that's kind of why I put this out there. That's kind of why I made this episode. I feel like it was kind of a negative episode. I'm hoping that didn't bring you down for your day. Let me know what you guys think. I know this is a polarizing issue. I know that I care about, like I said, I care about this in a different way than a lot of you care about. I know a lot of people are just real up front and they're like, I don't care. They're like, I don't care, give me the lower price and the cooler product and that's it. I don't care who it was stolen from. I don't care who knocks it off. Like, give me the fake Rolex, baby, right? Like, so I get it, right? Like I get it. So, but let me know how you guys think. I'd love to have some conversations with you down below. Let's keep it civil, but I'd appreciate that. And as always, thanks for watching the episode this long. I really appreciate it as usual. Thank you for liking, sharing, subscribing, all that kind of fun stuff. Again, no affiliate links for you to click this time, but when they're there, make sure you click those. And until the next review or podcast or whatever you tune in here for, I'm Tim with GymCrafter.